Hello and welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. Today I'm having an SEO Hangout, a real SEO Hangout, where people don't just proverbially hang out. They hang out in reality or in virtual reality, however that works. And yay! So today I want to talk about, if you're watching this, feel free to join in. There's some spots left, like 8 spots left. Go ahead and join in. 7 spots left. Otherwise, we're going to have an SEO discussion. And before we do that, though, I just want to catch up on some SEO news that has been going on. John Mueller has been at it again. John Mueller, for those of you who don't know, is a Google employee who frequently does webmaster hangouts with webmasters and tries to help webmasters with their SEO. So he has been talking about Panda lately. People have been mentioning Panda ever since Gary Isles mentioned there's going to be a Panda update at SMX Advanced back in June. And so what I want to talk about today is there really going to be a Panda update? What is Panda? Panda, for those of you who don't know, used to be a quality algorithm that Google would run pretty much on a monthly basis. For the last 2 or 3 years, they've been running it on a monthly basis. So it was that important to them. It's that important that they would actually have the manpower and schedule an update for Panda every month, and they would manually push it every month. And then for some reason, around late 2014, they stopped. They stopped running it every month. People who were hit by it recently after that update just sat there and didn't know what to do, and their sites were still demoted, and they didn't know what the heck was going on. And so people asked, well, what's going on? John Mueller at the time said that their algorithms are going to be running more real time, that the quality algorithms will be running on a real-time basis, and Gary Isles at the time said that the quality algorithms will be running on a real-time basis. And then now they've kind of changed their tune and saying that they're going to be they say they do have quality algorithms running on a real-time basis, but they are also going to run Panda again very soon. Gary Isles said about a month ago. So you should get your sites working. You should get your sites improved in quality. And so I want to talk about what the heck does that mean. And if they already have real-time quality algorithms running, then why do they need a static quality algorithm running? So if you guys have anything you want to say about that, by all means say it, or I'll just say what I think about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I have an enraptured audience, so I will continue. All right, so here's the deal, is that it doesn't really matter if there's such a thing as Panda. Glenn Gabe and I were discussing this. He's another SEO consultant. We were discussing this earlier today on Twitter. It doesn't really matter if there's such a thing as Panda. I don't think that there is. Anyone who's been watching my Hangouts for a while will know that I'm fairly dubious as to Google's recent propaganda plan, their public relations plan. It seems to be, to me, in my personal opinion, and based on what I'm watching and what I'm seeing and what I've discussed with Google behind the scenes, it seems to me to be just a campaign of misinformation. The only time they tell us to do anything is when they want us to do it for their own corporate reasons. They told us to improve our mobile experience because they wanted the mobile experience to get better so that mobile searchers would not get annoyed at using Google because every website they found was a crappy mobile website. And so they said, Mobilegeddon is coming, this big mobile update's coming, everyone watch out, it's going to be terrible. And then we all ran around like chickens with our heads cut off and got afraid and made our mobile sites better. And they were like, wow, that worked really well. That worked surprisingly well. And so Mobilegeddon rolled around, and it didn't seem to be that much of a geddon in the Mobilegeddon. People were wondering, well, that was not such a big deal. And Google said, well, we were surprised as to how well you guys responded. We said that the mobile sites would be demoted, and you guys all freaked out and made your mobile sites better. And so actually it had a much smoother transition than we expected. So I'm wondering if that's the same tactic they're deciding to use for Panda, because quite frankly, I think Panda or their main quality algorithms, the main quality parts of Panda, I think have been running in real time ever since late 2014. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that. There's plenty of Google admissions to suggest that. Both Gary Iles and John Mueller have both admitted that they have quality algorithms that are running on a real-time basis. So I think they took parts out of Panda, made that run in a real-time basis, and now if they're actually going to run Panda, and if that algorithm actually has anything to do with quality, I think that it's going to be maybe just like a static thing that they can't track in real time, or just a kind of a broad general adjustment for, like, let's say for the sake of example, they found particular kind of product pages on e-commerce sites as low quality, or in general a bad user experience. They might still, although it's kind of kludgy and not as elegant as they like to be, they might still theoretically run a general adjustment to get rid of that kind of a thing. Although I don't think that is the case. Or they might just do it to release the sites that are currently being held down by Panda. But I don't think that's the case. That's not. They haven't said that. They haven't said that's the reason for running it. They haven't said that they have any reason to run it. In fact, they've contradicted themselves as to why to run it, because they've also admitted that they have real-time quality algorithms running on a regular basis. If they have real-time quality algorithms running on a regular basis, then they don't need to have a manual adjustment anymore. And so it really begs the question as to why are they running it, and why are they saying they're going to run it at all. So that's my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
So that's, I mean, that's like fascinating. First of all, I've never looked at it from that point of view. Obviously, I don't know nearly as much as you, but I was really curious. Like, do you think that there's like certain parts that they could like fine tune, you know, and maybe there's certain, like, maybe this section of the filter is updating real time, you know, but this section we're going to kind of, you know, work on a little bit and then implement it, and maybe that's what they mean?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. So, for example, I believe, and many people in the industry believe, that they're now tracking real-time clicks on their SERP, their search engine result page. So they track what you click on, and if you click on another result, if you go back and forth, they're tracking that, right? And that is a pretty good. I think they've realized that's a pretty good analog to quality. If someone does a search for red apples, sees all the sites selling red apples, clicks on a result, doesn't like it for whatever reason, it's too slow, it's ugly, they can't tell in the user interface what to click, it's too busy, the prices are wrong, they don't like the design, they don't trust the site, for whatever human psychological reason, they click back and they click another result. And many people in the industry believe, and have done experiments to show, that very clearly Google is tracking that, and that's one of the real-time quality algorithms they have running. There are other quality factors that are more anecdotal that they could be testing. For example, the leaked Quality Raters guideline from last year shows a number of quality factors that they use. I compiled a list of all the possible Panda factors that any Google employee has ever talked about. I compiled an entire list of this whole thing, and I put it on my website at themoralconcept.net/pandalist.html. Again, that is themoralconcept.net/pandalist.html. And there I have the complete list of whatever any Google employee has ever leaked to be a quality or a Panda factor. They're more static factors, like, do they have pop-ups? Is there an interstitial ad? You know, things like that, more basic kind of things. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your site is low quality, or that your site is not fulfilling what is called task completion. What the Miley Oye, another Google employee, has been talking about for 3 or 4 years now, to make sure that every page completes its task. What kind of page is it? It's a contact page. The task of a contact page, the implicit teleology, if you will, of the contact page is for people to contact you, to click the contact button, right? So the implicit task of the contact page is for them to contact you, or for the purchase page is for them to purchase, or for the information page for them to be informed, and then hopefully even click deeper into the site to buy something. So they've been talking about task completion forever, and they had this anecdotal way, I think, of tracking it in the Quality Rater's Guide, like is it a good quality page, is the text good writing, but none of that matters at the end of the day if the end user has a high buying intent. If the end user, I've seen terribly designed web pages kill it in conversions and kill it in making sales just because the people really want to buy it. And so they'll put up with a terribly designed page and a terribly worded page, a low quality page, because they really want to make a purchase. And so Google knows this very well. They track all the statistics. John Mueller has admitted, and Gary Isles have both admitted on camera that they have direct Chrome statistics. Gary Isles admitted at SMX Advanced that it's possible. They can see what you do in Chrome. He claimed in SMX Advanced that he had to petition legal for the right to look at that data because it's part of their terms and conditions. For him, he has to do so. And so he admitted you can get the Chrome data, and he said at the time that it was too noisy. That's their euphemism they like to use. It was too noisy to make any. It was too noisy at the time, quote unquote. Okay, well, is it still too noisy? Did you overcome that programming challenge, Gary Isles? Is that what you did? I'd say his last name is Isles. I'm not really sure how you pronounce his last name properly. It's I-L-L, Ilyas. It's kind of a bad last name, Ilyas. But anyway, I call him Gary Isles. So, yeah, so there's all different kind of factors, both direct to measure user satisfaction and anecdotal. I think all the direct, where they're clicking, what they're clicking, and when, they can track both in the SERP, their own SERP, of course they can track that, and they've admitted for years they track that, and they can track in Chrome, what you're clicking on in Chrome, the aggregation of who's clicking what in Chrome. They can do this through the Safe Browse feature as well. The Safe Browse feature is the feature that checks everything you click compared to a database to see if that URL is in a malware database, and if it is, then throw up the malware red screen of death. They know everything you click on because they have to check it against the malware database. They can also collect that in a side process and see who's clicking on what to validate your links. If the link on a page doesn't get any clicks, then it's not a valid link. Many black hats believe they're using that to determine what a valid, safe link is or not. They can track that to see if you're completing the tasks. And as I said, Miley, Google's been talking about task completion. Other teams at Google have also put out PowerPoints about how to improve your micro conversions and your macro conversions. Google is not in the business of helping us or making anything good. If Google says anything in public, it is for their own goals. And if they tell you to make your micro conversions better, you can bet dollars to donuts that they're tracking it, in my opinion. So that's the direct kind of signals they can track. The anecdotal kind of signals they can track are, again, is it well written or not? Is it well designed or not? Is the main purpose of the page above 500 pixels, above the fold, so to speak? Do they have an interstitial ad that pops up? Do they have a pop-up that pops up? These are the anecdotal signals and evidence the machine learning has found that 90% of the time, or some high proportionate percentage of the time, tells them that it's a low-quality page. And so maybe the old Panda algorithm worked on that, and maybe the old Panda algorithm can make a basic adjustment based on those things. But the real-time ones, I think, are working on clicks, because that's the only thing that really works real-time. That and maybe Chrome.
So I know that you mentioned that they have the potential to look at the user experience through Chrome. I've heard also that they can, they estimate like how long it takes to get from one place to another through Android devices, right? That's how they like update their maps and do the traffic stuff. So what is your opinion on the mobile side of that? Can you do the same thing, measure the same stuff on an Android device?
Well, here's the interesting thing that adds credence to my theory, is that on mobile you can't. On mobile there is no safe browse feature, right? So then what do? They release a mobile real-time algorithm that gives you an error in Webmaster Tools, right? So it's the same function on mobile. They need to tell the mobile quality is still there, but they don't have the safe browse feature in the mobile browsers. They don't support it because it takes too many calls. It takes too much time because mobile typically is a slower transmission speed than desktop for the most part. So they don't have safe browse as a feature for the malware screen of death, to the best of my knowledge, in Android or those mobile browsers. And so now they need a mobile algorithm. That's why they released the mobile algorithm that gives you an error in Webmaster Tools that the tap screen is not big enough and this is not sized properly, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So you're saying that they're proportioning that so that they can better analyze the data, or they're machine.
Yes. So they have to have quality algorithms on whatever people are viewing. They've taken it upon themselves to be the stewards of the internet. They've taken it upon themselves to make sure the quality of their search experience, at the very least, is high. And the only way they can do that is by making the search experience for everybody else, our search experience, as high as possible. Because at the end of the day, Google has no products. We are their product, right? So they have to force us to make a better website somehow. And so they're going to do that through any means they can possible, right? They're going to make algorithms to demote us. They're going to tell us about it, do the negative reinforcement, the Pavlovian negative reinforcement in Webmaster Tools to say you have an error here, error, big red errors everywhere about your mobile design, right?
Yeah.
They're going to tell us they're going to release Panda and make Panda come out, so you better make good websites and scare us into doing it. They're going to admit they have real-time quality algorithms kind of on the side of the mouth. By the way, we have real-time quality algorithms, so keep making your site better all the time. They're going to say that too. Yeah, so that's how I think things are running.
Is there any tests that you are aware of that can, you can see what kind of, update will happen at what time? So, like, have you noticed, like, any fluctuations yourself that might indicate that, or reinforce your theories?
Yeah, it used to be that when Panda was released on a monthly basis, and it took about 10 days or so to spool out to all the data centers, you would see a huge crawl spike in sites that were going to be hit by Panda, either released or demoted. You would see a huge crawl spike. You don't really see that anymore. You see kind of intermittent little crawl spikes. And there seems to be, very interestingly, there seems to be a direct correlation, and Google has kind of admitted this. John Mueller has kind of admitted this in one of his recent Hangouts, that there seems to be a direct correlation between the amount the site is crawled in terms of a percentage of its total pages and how well the site ranks. Pretty much, not all the things, but a lot of the things that would demote a site, like slow speed, terrible internal linking structure, not very high page rank, not very good traffic, not being very authoritative in terms of click-throughs on the SERP or in terms of the social interaction. All those things are terrible for ranking, and all those things make it crawled less as well. So there seems to be a direct correlation, a fuzzy correlation, between the amount a site is crawled in terms of percentage of its total pages and how well the site ranks. For example, if you have a 100,000 page site, and on average, Google will crawl 80 to 90,000 to 100,000 pages per day, it thinks you're a pretty darn important site, and I bet that site's ranking page 1 for hundreds of queries. Whereas if you have a 100,000 page site, but they're only crawling 500 pages a day, either your site doesn't change at all, ever, you never update it, and these are not mutually exclusive, by the way, because that's a poor ranking factor as well, or your site's not ranking very well. You might have 1 or 2 page 1 rankings for legacy no queries because you provide information that's been the same, that's perennial, that's been the same for 15 years, and so Google's been serving you for 1 or 2 queries, but I guarantee 100,000 of your pages are not ranking page 1. Only if you are like a government .gov or something, or a .edu, and even then those sites really don't rank page 1 for anything hot or anything commercial, right?
Is there any correlation between like the types of Googlebot that are visiting your site? So like if news sites, for example, you'll kind of get the news hit, and then like you'll get the fresh index, and then the deep crawl kind of thing. Is there any way to kind of differentiate between them, or?
Yes. So both in terms of my theory, yeah, I'm only talking about the regular Googlebot. The news Googlebot will crawl differently because it's crawling all the time for all the news sites to get the new news.
Right.
The mobile bot will crawl differently because of different speeds and whatnot, and things of that nature, closer to the web crawler. But yeah, you can tell the difference in your logs. You can check your logs to see what is hitting your site when. You can ask Google general questions about how these different robots behave, these crawlers behave, but they won't tell you very much about that. I've seen people ask, and they won't say much about that. They'll defer. Like John Mueller would say, I don't know anything about the news Googlebot. You'll have to ask the news team about that. And you might even be able in Webmaster Tools to see the difference. I've never noticed, to tell you the truth, but I don't think you can.
Okay.
So Zara and Mike, if you guys have any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat or unmute yourself and let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to go up to my notes here and just start going through some basic notes of what John Mueller's been talking about and give a general update. So if you have anything you want to say, go ahead, just turn off, just interrupt me, just go ahead and unmute yourself or say something in the chat. And anyone who's watching, there's about 10 people watching right now. If you guys are watching, by all means, if you have a question, you want me to give you some free SEO advice, or if you want me to answer some SEO questions for you, bring a site, I can take a look at it, or wherever you want, just by all means, jump in. Okay. Now, so back in June 2nd, John Mueller mentioned a bunch of stuff. People have been asking whether or not they're still using links. Here's another very interesting discussion in the industry. Are they using links or not? Back on June 2nd, John Mueller mentioned that PageRank, the algorithm that deals with links, that they've been using for over a decade, well over a decade, 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, they're still running it. He said, we're still running PageRank, we still use PageRank, but it's very interesting. He talked about it in kind of a deprecated way and how, but it's not the main algorithm anymore. He's definitely said it's not the main algorithm anymore. He said in many Hangouts since then, recently, in the last couple of months, that links are, you don't need just links. He said verbatim, there are many different kind of, my words, offsite ranking factors or offsite references that they can use and that they do use, because he fully admitted that in some industries people just don't link. In some industries, there's non-tech savvy industries, people don't have blogs and just don't link anymore. So that means they're using some other kind of offsite references. It's kind of interesting to think, well, what can that be? What is that exactly? I would guess social signals are a pretty good guess. I would guess user metrics are a pretty good guess in terms of, again, all that stuff I was talking about. Who's clicking what on the SERP? They go to the site. Where do they click on the site? What page do they click on? Do they go back? Do they click some of the result? All those kinds of things. So those are the kind of, do they bookmark the site? Do they social share the site? All those kinds of things that would be more difficult for us to see. So I think that, yeah, they're still using links. It is a signal, but it's not the only offsite reference signal. And my point about links that I made recently in a blog post is that it's not that they don't work. It's that, quite frankly, given all the risk involved with links, for me, they fail risk-reward return on investment analysis. They fail a risk-reward ROI analysis. For example, I know you'll be shocked to hear this, but very recently, a white hat blogging company contacted me and mentioned that I can buy a blog post with a do follow link on such, I won't mention the exact publications, but they were high profile publications in the general public, think like the bigger newspapers and the bigger magazines, and also high profile publications in the SEO space. I'm not joking, but I won't mention any names. And I can buy a blog post, aka a do follow link, on these publications ranging anywhere from $900 to $2,000 a post. So that's $900 to $2,000 a link. When it used to be, like back in 2008, the cost of a link was like $10 a link or $5 a link or maybe $100 a link for like a high-profile post, right? So that tells you a number of things. That tells you, one, Google's campaign against links has worked. The cost of links is increased by 20-fold at least, if not 100-fold. Two, it's not dead though. SEOs are still selling it because they don't know what else to sell clients, and they don't know what other signals to try to manipulate or exploit and to sell to clients, because they have no idea. They haven't been paying as much attention as some of us have, and I don't blame them, because it's a full-time job just keeping track of the propaganda that Google says and doing SEO experiments. Trust me, that almost keeps me busy most of the time, right? It also tells me that people don't understand what white hat is. They thought they were white hat. They're not. If they're selling links, that's by definition black hat. Yeah, and it also tells me that links are still at least partially working, but quite frankly, based on what Google has said, you don't need links. I don't sell any links. I don't do any links. because, as I said, it just fails for me a risk-reward ROI analysis. When the cost is that high per link and the risk is that high that Google will either A, find it, B, penalize it if you don't choose the right anchor text, and or C, just discredit it, or D, stop using the link algorithm altogether because they know people are spamming the hell out of it still. That's too high of a risk for the cost. When I can do the same kind of thing manipulating other signals, social signals, just general buzz signals, text mentions, no-follow links, placed in the right way in the right places, and I can rank sites that way. I don't need to be selling links, which is, quite frankly, dangerous to do so. So, yeah, it's a very interesting case about links. Do you guys have any questions about that? Craig, you look like you have a question on your mind.
Yeah, sorry, man. So
no, by all means.
You mentioned like the social signals. Are there some social sites, and it could be relevant to the industry, right? But are there some social sites that carry more weight than others? What do you think about that?
I think there are. I think the bigger the social site, the more weight it carries. Google Plus definitely carries some weight because it's their social site. Twitter definitely carries some weight because they have the direct pipe from Twitter into their database. And Facebook bears some weight only because it is the biggest social network and they cannot afford to avoid it. So, and you can tell this. You can tell they have algorithms for determining who's saying what and what's transpiring because, one, that's how they decide what tweets to spider. Two, when you do a search and you get a social result in the SERP, you can see that they already calculated how many people are talking about it, how many people have liked it, how big the discussion is going on. They have a clout-like algorithm that is already running. Also, Matt Cutts admitted to me 2 years ago that they did, and they would. And he lamented about it. He was pissed off they had to make one because there was so much spam on Twitter and there's so much spam on Facebook that he was both lamenting, we got to clean up the web spam, now we got to clean up Twitter spam and clean up Facebook spam. And he was pissed off about that. So, yeah, the bigger social networks, but even the smaller social networks like Reddit,
right.
Dig, I mean, and Reddit is by no means a small social network, but they're definitely, I mean, I've had a post on Reddit and then rankings jump like 800% the next day. So, I mean, the posts on Reddit have huge SEO juice, in my opinion. And so any of those kind of social networks, they have back-end access to like 100 or 200 of them. They have back-end deals for backdoor access to a couple hundred of them. This was a deal that they published very quietly a couple of years ago. So yeah, the social networks are definitely tracking that. They have to. They can't afford not to. I would use them all. Like, it doesn't matter. I would just blanket all of them, but definitely the big ones: Pinterest, Twitter, Google Plus, Facebook, Reddit, and then and maybe Instagram. Depending, you want to kill two birds with one stone. You want to both get the social signals for any potential ranking bonus, but you also want to connect with the audience on those social networks as well. So if you're a young hip brand, you want to be in the young hip social networks. If you're a baby boomer or a Gen X brand, you want to be on those social networks. If you're a tech brand, you want to be more Twitter. If you're more family oriented, you want to be Facebook. Et cetera, et cetera. Visual based, you want to be on Pinterest, or more skewing to the female demographic, you want to be more on Pinterest. Those kinds of things.
You mentioned the deal that they signed. Are you talking about the Data Hub partners?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Data Hub. Okay.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. They've been doing this for years, right? This is the result of the algorithms that we have now have been the work of the last 3 years, and so nothing exists in a vacuum. It's a conversation it's a war between Google and spammer, or Google and Black Hat, right? Google, who writes the algorithms, and then those SEOs willing to exploit the algorithms, however aggressively. So it goes back and forth, and Google finds signals finds sneakier ways to find signals that they can have access to, but you don't. For example, it's still in the SEO industry considered a valid tactic to reverse engineer, to try and reverse engineer how your competitors are ranking. You do a search and you see your competitor there, and you go, "Ooh, I hate that green apple site. I want my red apples to be there. Why can't my red apples be there?" And so then you fire up Ahrefs, or you fire up Majestic, and you look at their backlinks and you figure, "Oh, that's how they're doing it," and then you try and mimic that. Unfortunately, that is, in my opinion, the worst way to do it. because you're presuming you know what algorithms are running already in order to do the reverse engineering. You put the cart before the horse. The reverse engineering is supposed to tell you what algorithms are possibly running, not you assume what the algorithms are running and then you self-fulfill your prophecy by finding the data to correspond with this, right? So unfortunately, the way it's working now, if you're listening to John Mueller, which is not an SEO tactic a lot of people like to do, but I guess because of my academic background, I'm used to listening to long, boring lectures and reading between the lines of what they're talking about and what they're really talking about. But you get more out of listening to John Mueller's public relations speak or Gary Iles' public relations speak and doing your own SEO experiments than you will trying to reverse engineer your competitors. Because one, most people don't even realize about personalization, that they have to be doing this in a incognito browser, first off. Two, the incognito browser doesn't fully work because Eric Schmidt has admitted they have persistent cookies. Three, geolocation matters as well, and which data center you're hitting matters. Four, you don't know what signals they're using. You don't know who's clicking what on their SERP. You don't know who's bookmarking a site. They go into Chrome and they make a bookmark, whatever, or favoriting a site in IE, I think it's called. You don't know who's doing that, but it's a perfect signal to use, right? So reverse engineering only works so much. You have to instead be more of a scientist. You can't be a computer programmer. You have to be more of a SEO scientist, and you have to work. It's a rough metaphor. Bear with me. You have to listen to what the current scientists are saying, generate a hypothesis from that, affirm or deny the hypothesis, aka run an SEO experiment, and then you'll be able to tell what's going on. It gets my goat a little bit when people talk about reverse engineering still, as if it's still a valid technique. In my opinion, and for the reasons I mentioned, in today's SEO climate, it really isn't. Zara, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Is that because you wanted to stop my rant and have a question? Please stop my rant.
I was thinking about the backlinks and everything, and I'm thinking from a strategic point of view that, looking at all that stuff with your competitors and then running the same stuff they're doing doesn't seem like very strategic thinking to me in the first place. I mean, no matter what's going on behind the scenes, if you're doing the same thing, you're doing the same thing. Am I wrong? This. I'm new at all this stuff, but
No, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you're absolutely right. It used to be strategic, or more tactical, really. Well, both. It used to be both strategic and tactical, because everyone knew that links was really the main algorithm they were using. Links and specificity. If you said the keyword on the page and you had links that said the keyword, you would rank all day long. That's the way it worked. Everyone knew this.
Right.
And you didn't really have to have, you always should have for business reasons, but you never really had to have a differentiated brand for SEO reasons. You could be Best Red Apples ugly site where you just buy red apples with not like Josh's Fruit Emporium that there's a brand selling red apples. You didn't necessarily have to do that. It was a smart idea to do that. It's always been a smart idea to brand yourself. Branding has been around since business has been around, and it's always been a good idea to have your own brand for business reasons, never mind SEO reasons. But now Google can directly track branding in direct algorithms, whether people have searched your brand name or not and clicked your result. That is a ranking factor, right? That John Mueller has mentioned almost point blank, verbatim. That's why he reminds us to have a kitschy, memorable URL that's small so people can remember to type it in, remember to link to it, and share it. So, yeah, you're right. It's not strategic anymore. It's not strategic because it's not helping you achieve your marketing goals. It's not helping you achieve your business goals. So it's not helping with your business strategy or marketing strategy. You want to be a kitschy brand that people are going to remember, right? You don't want to be buyredapples.com. You want to be Josh's Fruit Emporium that, wow, that's a neat name. They're going to remember it. They're going to search it because it's personable. It's kitschy. Not only that, it's not tactical either to do a reverse engineer of your competitors' backlinks, because you don't know what backlinks are good. You don't know what backlinks are bad. You don't know what's helping them there. You don't know what's hurting them there. You don't know if they're currently penalized. You don't know if they're about to get a penalty. So it's like watching somebody who's eating various foods, including drinking a lot of booze and eating some poison every now and then, but eating good foods and saying, oh, they look more or less healthy today. I guess I'll mimic that. That's the same kind of reasoning. Whereas tomorrow they'll fall over dead, and you go, oops, I guess I shouldn't have mimicked them, right? You're looking at this little time capsule. They look healthy now. That's the very definition of cause correlation fallacy. Except I can't remember the Latin name for it. The Latin name for the cause correlation fallacy that most people do is post hoc ergo propter hoc. After this, therefore, because of this. But there's another cause correlation fallacy in the Latins, which is before this, therefore, after this. So it works both ways. Anyway, I won't bore everyone with Latins. It's
rhetoric, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's all rhetoric. That's right. It's all Greek to me. It's all Latin to me. You guys have any other questions?
No, I don't. And I want to thank you. I have to get ready to go meet a client here in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to leave. But thank you so much for doing this. I always like listening to you, Josh, because you have a very strong perspective, and you're very knowledgeable. Well, some people have strong perspectives, but it's not backed up by much. It's
not a polite way of saying
it was a pleasure joining you today, and thank you so much. And if you do any more of these impromptu things, be sure to let me know.
I sure will. Thank you very much. The pleasure was all ours.
Okay, thanks. I'll see you soon. Ciao.
Bye. All right. So unless Mike or Craig have another question, and if you do, by all means, just interrupt me. I'll go back to some of these notes here. Okay. So also back in June 2nd, John Mueller had a hangout, and he mentioned that internal links are not necessarily a signal of low quality. I mentioned my Panda list a little while ago, and in it, in the quality raters guideline, they did instruct their quality raters to look for broken links on the site. That was an indication of low quality. Again, not a direct indication, but an anecdotal indication. That through their machine learning, they probably ran through the Bayesian filter and found a high statistical correlation with broken link sites and low quality sites, the kind they want to demote. He said that it's not necessarily, quote unquote, a sign of low quality, but then I say, okay, this is a perfect example of how you have to learn to read between the lines to what Google is saying. He said it wasn't necessarily because he was point blank asked, is it a signal of no quality? He's going to deny it, but he says it's not necessarily. He still has a conscience, so he says it's not necessarily a signal of low quality, but that compiled with something else and compiled with something else can be a signal of low quality. And he did say after all, you should fix it anyway. So whenever he says you should fix it anyway, you can guarantee that's part of the ranking algorithm, right? That's something that they're looking at, or they very well could look at in the future. Okay. He also gave us a much more detailed idea of what he thought low quality or / spammy content was. He says it was content, and I'm almost quoting, I'm paraphrasing, but almost direct quoting. He said it was crazy abusive, has nothing but spam links, has irrelevant comments, there's any kind of user-generated content problems. He said also if the users say it looks cheap, quote unquote. Okay, so just imagine for a second, what looks cheap? Poorly designed, can't tell where to click, crappy design looking like it was made in 1990s, that kind of a thing. So again, a lot of people don't think that's directly factored into SEO these days. It is. A huge portion of my SEO audits that I do is looking at your design and looking how good your design is and how well it's converting and trying to make your design better and make the user interface better and to make you more conversions and more sales now, and that will also rank you better in the future. And I strongly suggest that be part of your SEO audit process as well.
Just a quick question. What about like title tags? Obviously meta descriptions don't matter in regards to ranking. They do with click-through, so I guess you could argue they do. But title tags, a lot of people still put a keyword phrase with the geography and then maybe a brand name. Is there any way that you would recommend to do that a little bit differently that might be a little more relevant?
Oh, would I? Thank you for asking. it's like I gave you these questions to ask me, and I just hit it and just knock them down. No. Yes, I agree entirely with that. That's the wrong way of doing it. It's the wrong way of doing it. I don't think keywords in the title matter almost at all for rankings anymore. Maybe a tiny little bit, but quite frankly, it's much more important for click-through rate, as you mentioned, for the meta description. You want to make sure your titles have the keyword in it, only because if you don't, Google will automatically rewrite your title for you. So if you have a page about where you can sell, we were selling red apples, so they can buy red apples on your page. Red apples is my standard euphemism for any kind of product. You don't want to have buy red apples, best red apples, pipe, red apples, or something like that. You want to have, wow, 2015's best red apples, or get 2015's top red apples here, or looking for red apples, ? Buy red apples here, something like that. And not because you want the repetition of red apples, but because you want it to be catchy from a marketing standpoint. You want people to see it and click it. You want to make sure your click-through rate is high, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get the majority of the clicks. If you're on page 1, you should be able to get 50% of the clicks or more if you have a good, at least 30% of the clicks, if you have a good title written. And then the same thing with the meta description. The meta description is supposed to add to the reasons why they should click that title. And you only want the keyword in there, not really for ranking, but more just because if you don't have the keyword in there, they're going to rewrite it for you. And you don't want them to do that. Alrighty. Finally, John Mueller mentioned when it comes to low-quality spammy content, he mentioned that our algos will look at the craft, quote unquote, and if there's craft, there will be ranking issues. So what does John Mueller mean by craft? Well, he's mentioned craft a number of times, and he mentions like if you have URL parameters there, and so you can have any kind of URL parameter that you're responding 200 on, and for the red apples page, like red apples / equals apple 1, banana 2, whatever, that kind of stuff. If that all responds 200 with the duplicate content, that's craft. That will be a problem. Not that duplicate content is necessarily a problem, but that kind of craft is a problem. If you have keyword tags and keyword pages, that's craft. Any kind of craft, any kind of unnecessary stuff in the sidebars or in the footer, they consider that craft as well. So that's the kind of stuff that they consider low quality, and you can have ranking problems for that kind of stuff. Okay, let me see. Yes, so as I mentioned, June 14th, this is when John Mueller mentioned, and I quote, "You don't need the same number of backlinks as everyone else." In other words, my words, when doing a competitive analysis or in general, you don't necessarily need links. There are other offsite factors, so that's where he said that, June 14th in a Hangout. He wants to make sure, he also said in the same Hangout, you want to make sure your ads above the fold are not sneaky, sorry, and that they're matching what people are looking for. He said there's no problem having a hero image at the top as long as it's matching the content. So like Wired magazine, they'll have like a kind of a pretty graphic at the top, and then they'll have the article post underneath. That's usually fine because usually it's a pretty picture and usually draws people into reading the article. But if you have a crappy picture at the top or an ad that's going to piss people off, if that makes them bounce back, that's going to be a problem for your rankings, definitely, for their quality outcomes. Okay. He mentioned about authorities. How do we calculate authority? John Mueller mentioned on June 14th. He says you have to look at the authority that your users are giving you for ranking, quote unquote. What kind of authority is there? Well, there were social shares, usage of the site and on the SERP to your site, positive comments, the links you have, the text mentions you have, the bookmarks they're making, and you're terminating the search process. Those are the kind of things that tell them that people searching for your brand name and having a high percentage click on your brand name in the SERP. So those are the kind of things that are telling them that you're authority and all the kinds of things they can track. Okay, June 17th. Let me see if I can find anything interesting. John Mueller is directly asked about the phantom, quote-unquote, core quality updates, which are in real time. Are they real time or are they manual? And John Mueller, interestingly, says both. and he directly reiterates what Pedro Diaz, a former Google employee, said in Twitter, is that these big updates are just algorithm updates that process stuff in real time, hence the seeming manual push. So think about it. They can use the term update interchangeably for a data update or an algorithm update. And it could be also a data and algorithm update. And remember, some of these Google employees, English is their second language. And so they might mean, when they say a data update, they could mean that could mean the algorithm as well. They don't necessarily have to have a strict separation in their head what they mean by data. So, I mean, programming is data. It's all bits and bytes anyway, right? So it depends on what you mean. So Pedro Diaz said earlier, when Barry Schwartz failed to get this distinction that I tried to explain to him, Pedro Diaz said, it's entirely possible that when they do one of these updates, they're not updating the data, they update the algorithm that processes the data in real time differently than it used to because they changed the code, they changed the data, they changed the algorithm, right? Sorry to use that separately. So, and John Mueller essentially on this Hangout on the 17th, he reiterated the same thing, that we are updating our algorithms on a regular basis. The update is an algorithm update, and it's processing the data differently in real time. And so that's why these phantom updates that they don't say are Panda, but they look very Panda-like, they're processing quality in the same way. This is what Glenn Gabe and I were talking about today. And they, it seems like a big shift or a big Panda update because let's say, for example, they find that one of these phantom updates, they found that e-commerce sites were hit. And I think it's because e-commerce sites do a pretty bad job on their product pages. And the ones I see, they have a very low conversion rate. Like out of 1,000 people, only 10 people buy or something ridiculous like that, like a 1% conversion rate. And so I think they're tracking the clicks, and I think they're demoting any of these sites that have a low conversion rate or something along those lines. And so they change the algorithm to process the clicks in this different way, and so a bunch of these sites get hit at the same time because the algorithm's updated. They're all, these e-commerce sites are big sites, they get crawled almost on a daily basis, right? So within the space of a couple of days, they're all crawled on a daily basis, algorithm updates, processing clicks differently, those sites get crawled and start to demote. So it looks like an old Panda push, a la 2013, early 2014. But it's not. It's not a data push. It's an algorithm push processing the data differently. The crawl is on a regular basis. They process the clicks on a regular basis. Those sites start to go down. Does that make sense, Craig?
Yeah, it does. And also, is there anything that they, maybe do with links too, like in correlation with like the on-site like user metrics that maybe kind of are like the same way, like for example, taking into account like which links have been disavowed, like uploading that data in the algorithm or something like that?
That's a very good question. A very controversial question for me that I've been called out on before, but I'll stand by what I said before. However, before I say what I'm about to say, I'm going to give the caveat that it could change at any time. It could change at any time. It is my belief that the disavow file does absolutely nothing directly. It is my belief the disavow file, except for being a bona fide text file that the manual team can look at when you do a manual reconsideration request, for them to see, it's kind of like a confessional sheet. Any Catholics out there know what I'm talking about, like a confessional sheet. I confess, Google, when's the last time we have your last confession? I confess that these links I could not delete, and therefore I must disavow. That is how the disavow file works. There is absolutely no evidence that I can find to suggest that the disavow file actually is processed in an if loop fashion, where they crawl the way John Mueller says it is, that they crawl links, they go, should we attach PageRank value? If disavowed, no. If not disavowed, yes. Attach PageRank value. Does that make sense? How the programming loop would work in theory? That's how John Mueller says it works. That's how I wished it worked when it first came out. I said publicly, this is great if it works this way. This is how Matt Cutts told me to my face, it does not work. It will never work. That's not how they want it to work. Because they want, and I quote, I'm quoting Matt Cutts directly when I had a private conversation with him. Matt Cutts, by the way, for those who don't know, used to run the web spam team and did for years. That they want to hurt black hats and hold them down for years. So they cannot let the disavow file work in that way that John Mueller says it does. I think it works based on machine learning. These are the kinds of links that are bad. Add that to the machine learning algorithm. The machine learning looks at irrelevant factors to get correlation statistics, and then they will make their general linking algorithms work in that way. It has to be that way. It can't be any other way. However, there are those out there who are selling a disavow option, quite frankly, because in my opinion, they don't know what else to sell. And in my opinion, that's unethical. You can watch my my controversial Whiteboard Friday I did for Moz on that topic, which unfortunately sunk me from probably doing any other Whiteboard Fridays because I pissed off their community so much that they basically told me behind the scenes, we're never going to ask you back, take a hike. Well, with that's fine. They have their user base to be concerned about. That is their revenue model, after all. Without their user base, they have no revenue model. But at the end of the day, there is no evidence to suggest it works any other way, and no evidence to suggest that politically it would ever be a good move for Google to do that. Now, that can always change. I could very well be wrong. Evidence could surface today or tomorrow that, hey, look, the disavow file does work, and the evidence we were looking for would be this: a naked disavow. It has to be a naked disavow. I have to look in Ahrefs. I have to see your rankings have gone back up, and I have to see that you deleted no links at all, and you only disavowed links, and then I can go, okay, well, maybe that was a naked disavow. Every other time someone sent me that data, they always disavowed as many links as they deleted. They always had link deletion as well as disavow. So that means you cannot tell me it's a naked disavow. You don't know if it was deleting the links that helped or disavowing the links that helped. Deleting the links when you had a linking penalty always seemed to help a little bit as long as you didn't go too far. Disavowing the links never alone, never let a site out for any evidence I can find unless there was also link deletion. So in my opinion, it doesn't work, and I haven't seen the evidence to suggest it works yet, but Matt Cutts has now been the head of web spam for a couple of years now, a year and a half now or so. They have a new head of web spam. They very well could be concerned about negative SEO. They might have politically changed their mind. And so John Mueller says it's how it works with a straight face, and he's not the kind of guy who likes to lie. And so maybe they just lied to John Mueller because they know that that's what they wanted him to say. Or maybe he knows and John Mueller's a better liar than I give him credit for. Or maybe that's actually how it works, and I just haven't been able to find the evidence for it yet. Does that make sense, Craig?
Yeah, yeah.
Craig, you're going to be my barometer for this whole thing if I'm making sense or not.
No, it's good. You know, I actually remember that Whiteboard Friday, and the comment section just blew up. I didn't know that. I mean, obviously, I see a different side of that than you did. And you also had another Whiteboard Friday about the penguin list or the panda list that you had as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was loved. Everyone loved that one. That was the much beloved. That was one of their top 7 popular Whiteboard Fridays that year. Just to toot my own horn a little bit. And then the next one I did, which by the way was completely vetted and completely approved by all Moz employees who saw it ahead of time. So like, yep, good. This is great. You go, Josh. I said, are you sure this is a little edgy? Are you sure we should do this? They said, oh yeah, go for it. It's great. It's wonderful. They approved it. It's not. You don't get content on Moz. You don't get a Whiteboard Friday on Moz's blog without them A, filming it and B, approving it, right? So they filmed it. They approved it. We did it. And then they just didn't realize how pissed off their user base would get because I knew what those SEO consultants were selling, and I knew they were going to get embarrassed and pissed off when I'm calling them into question. But I had to do it because I have this shirt. Icon has ethics. That is my shirt. And so as much as I call out Google, I call out any other person who's doing something unethical as far as I can see. And that also, although, you know, Sasha Meyer accused me of just being a Google hater and only calling out Google and not ever calling out any other SEOs. Okay, so I did. and you see the result. They don't want to be called out. Anyway, on that happy note, moving right along.
Yeah, that's definitely. What's your opinion and how that fits into Penguin? So like your theory with the way that the disavow file works, how does that kind of fit into the larger picture of the Penguin algorithm?
That's an excellent question. It's been such a long time since they've run Penguin that it's almost impossible to say. They could rewrite it any way they want, right? But previously, I had seen absolutely no evidence on any of the announced Penguin releases that the Disavow file helps in any way. All the late Penguin releases they did in late 2014, in November, December 2014, most of which they announced, and one or two they didn't, but I know they're Penguin because they announced behind the scenes, and I was there when they announced it behind the scenes. They were Penguin as well. None of those times any sites that disavowed helped. All my clients who had deleted links, most of them got out if they deleted enough of the bad links, of the spammy links. The spammy links are essentially the exact match query links. They're trying to sell red apples, and they had a bunch of links that said buy red apples or get red apples here, or red apples, red apples, red apples. Those are the spammy links, and those are the ones that sink you for Penguin. It's essentially just a Bayesian filter. If you go over too high of a ratio of exact match query links that have too much of commercial intent, whether it's in your domain name or not, that seems to be how Penguin hits. It's pretty, and that you have the exact match query correlation on your page as well. You seem to go over a threshold, and it's like a negative factor at that point. Whether they will continue, that's the way it's going to continue to work. Whether Penguin is a real thing and they're actually going to ever run it again, I don't know, because they've already admitted that they have real-time spam algorithms, linking spam algorithms as well. And not just the manual team, but real-time algorithmic demotions. Joe Mueller has already said that Penguin is going to run real-time, should be running real-time, very soon will be running real-time, and then after that, he never mentioned the word Penguin again. He always said, yes, we have spam algorithms, linking algorithms that run in real-time that are algorithmic and manual, both. So that tells me that Penguin, or the son of Penguin, or some Penguin variant, he's just admitted some spam, and when he says spam algorithm, he means a linking algorithm. Some spam linking algorithm, aka Penguin, is running in real time. So I don't know why they're saying they're going to run Penguin again. Maybe to give people hope that they'll get released. I strongly doubt it. It is if they really cared about getting people released, they'd run it now instead of waiting for 2 years at a time. What business can wait 2 years 2 years at a time to not be on page one for their marketing model? No business, right? Any business that doesn't care about Google to begin with, right? So, sorry, go ahead.
AdWords sales, but
yeah, well, yes. Yes, there's the rub, as the bard would say. It does boost their AdWords sales to do it that way. But quite frankly, I think them talking about Penguin is just like them talking about Panda now. That quite frankly, it's just a boogeyman. They're bringing up. They saw how scared we got about the mobile getting. They saw how worried we were about the mobile algorithm, and they said, hey, holy shit, that worked really well. Okay, well, let's scare them about Panda, and they'll make their sites better. And let's scare them about Penguin and say, Penguin is still there. Don't you go to sleep at night, you children. You know, they're using it as the boogeyman again for us not to be making spam links and keeping it in the back of our mind that Penguin is going to run. So be good, for goodness sake. You know, it's coming. You know, that kind of a thing.
So two things. One, you know, it's funny, like the correlation between like Google and the Fed. You know, when the Fed releases like a statement, everybody's kind of deciphering what do they mean. You know, is this double talk? Like, what's going on? And then two, you know, back to the Disavow file, which I know is your favorite topic right now. But you know, those domains that are submitted, is there any chance that, you know, you mentioned, and maybe maybe touched on this, but how do you feel like those domains kind of influence the potential ongoing quality algorithms? So do you think that they look at them and see what sites they're, you know, linking to, and then kind of maybe take into consideration, because you just submit the domain, right? Like, that's very intentional. It just has to be the domain. So like, what is, I guess, the reason for that, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I mean, if my theory is correct, and it's all machine learning, then why pinpoint the link at all, right? In the Disavow file, you can pinpoint the exact URL and pinpoint the links on that page, disavow those, or you can say disavow any link coming from this domain. On the one hand, that looks clearly circumspect, because why even specify the domain? I mean, clearly you could use that for machine learning in terms of that's a low-quality domain. I don't think they're doing that for the simple reason that just because it has spammy links on it doesn't necessarily mean it's a low-quality domain. That might be too far removed a factor in terms of an anecdotal quality factor. But it's entirely possible. They'll run their machine learning on anything and everything. They're running experiments every single day. Any data they have access to, I guarantee they're going to test it. So I guarantee to you, I would bet you $10,000 that Google thought about factoring in the disavow domains as potential spammy domains. If disavowed, check mark in a 10-strike check mark for low quality. I guarantee they tested it. While whether they're using it or not, it all depends on if their machine learning told them they had a high enough threshold of correlation, right? Which we will never know. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because as John Mueller fully admits that just because the site has links that you may want to disavow doesn't mean that it's going to be a low quality site. And if we thought that for a second, if we thought that's the way they're going to work it, then all the black hat sites would put their competitors in the disavow list to get them blacklisted as a low quality site. So negative SEO would be rampant, and it would screw up their machine learning to try and learn what links to disavow.
All right, that's a good point. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So that's been about an hour. I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice. I guarantee other people must be getting tired of hearing my own voice. Michael, Mike, you guys have been quiet the whole time. Do you have any questions at all? Anything you want to say, or you just want to hang out? You have 10 seconds to reply. 9, 8, 14, 3, 6, alpha, beta, 9, 8. I can't count in any language. I don't even know if I've counted 10 yet. Okay, I guess not. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, and thank you very much for all those viewers who've been watching. This has been an SEO Hangout with Josh Bachynski. Thank you, Craig and Zara, for all the questions. And without further ado, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.